That tells me that it's being sent to a third party, so seems like it
Okay,
works.
that's good. We like to see that. Um, okay, perfect. So we
It
are
tells me that it's
on.
being sent to a third party, so seems like
Okay.
it works.
Let me mute that site so we don't hear everything double. And so let's get started, friends. So I am so excited to have Nora here with us. She reached out to me a few weeks ago. I'll be honest. It took me, life was a little hectic. Took me a little bit to get back to her, but we finally connected. And she had reached out because she wanted to share some of my designs on her channel, on her social media, Instagram and all of that, where she features different designers. And I said, well, if you're featuring me, I'd like to feature you. So here we are. Love having an opportunity to introduce different people, fun, exciting people doing different things in the fiber world. And so I will let Nora introduce themselves to you, and then we'll chat a bit. And if you have questions, please feel free. You can put them in the chat. I'm going to follow the chat. Or at the end, we'll save some time for some Q&A or unmute, whatever.
Awesome. Yes, my name is Nora, and I am the owner of a little online shop called Finished Knits. It started out as just me sharing my own personal products, and Finished is with two N's, and that's because I was born in Finland and I moved to the States when I was 13. My parents didn't think that I was old enough to stay behind by myself, so here I am. So play on words, Finished Knits, it works. And then 2003, so a little over a year ago in February, I started the online yarn shop version of it because I wanted to be able to bring particular types of yarns to the market that I was not able to find myself. And then it's just kind of grown from there, and I'm having fun with it. And yes, I do a designer spotlight. I had a little bit of a lull here. As you mentioned, it's been crazy. May is just one of those months where, oh, graduations and into school and this and that and the other. And I had a few weeks where I didn't do it, but I do try to do a designer spotlight once a week where I feature a designer, show off their patterns, um, and help promote people, because if knitters don't have designs to knit from, they won't need my yarn.
And if we don't have yarn to knit from, we won't have anything to make.
Yeah, it's a
So
very symbiotic relationship.
it absolutely is. I've heard May referred to as Maycember, like that we're as busy as we are in December. It's end of school, like you said,
Hmm.
graduations, you know, holidays in the US. We have Memorial Day and Mother's Day also in May. So it's a busy time.
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah. And those summer months, I find sometimes knitters like the outdoors. A lot of them like to, garden and spend time outside. And so sometimes knitting goes with us outside, or sometimes it takes, a little bit of a backseat to other interests.
Yeah, and there tends to be a shift in fibers for a lot of people. Many folks don't, or types of projects. Many people don't like to have a big wool sweater in their lap in the middle of summer that they're working on. So they might switch to linen and cotton, or they might switch to socks that are smaller projects or something. But
Yeah.
it's all so varied and a personal choice.
Yeah. And socks are great as portable projects because
Hmm.
they're small. And if you are in maybe not the heel and gusset and all of that stuff, but the rest of it, you can just keep on knitting, right?
Exactly, exactly. And we do have Knit in Public Days coming up on a week from Saturday. So perfect time to take your knitting outside.
So I have so I do a big thing for local yarn store day, which is the end of April. And then I do some knit nights that are part of it. So we're doing a knit night the evening of Worldwide Knit in Public Day. Um,
Fantastic. Yeah, I host the Sunday stitch session
oh,
twice a
nice.
month. Our downtown area, I'm in the suburbs outside of Atlanta in Woodstock, Georgia. And our downtown area has had a lot of investment put into it, and it's a really, really great place to hang out. And there are two different locations. On the first Sunday of every month, I go to a place called Stout Brothers, which is a little coffee bar, beer place. They have like 50 taps and a little tiny restaurant thing, and it's a fantastic atmosphere. And then on the third Sunday of every month, we are at the Reeves House Visual Arts Center. So they have a little coffee bar. They do art exhibits, and then they have a little studio room in the back where they do art classes and stuff. And they let me use that for the knit sessions once a month. So
That's so fun. I love that.
it is. It's great because I have this excuse to tell my family, like, I'm knitting. I'm sorry, I can't do anything else. It's my time to knit. It's on the calendar.
Yeah. So tell me more about the yarns that you carry because obviously it was something that you felt was difficult to get or lacking in the yarns that are available in the US. So what makes the yarns that you bring in different? What makes them special to you?
Well, the brand that I ended up with is Lankava, which is a family-owned shop in or business in Finland. The difference really is in Finland, for anybody that might not know, Finland is a Northern European country. Um, and it gets cold. So when we knit socks, especially for winter time, we knit socks from Aran weight yarn, or our thin socks are DK weight yarn. So what I was having trouble finding is an Aran weight or DK weight sock yarn, something that was mostly wool but had something in it like a nylon or polyamide or something to give it that extra strength because I'm going to be walking on it. It's going to get wear and tear on it. And if I, uh, there are ways to make 100% wool socks last and, knit them tighter and that kind of thing. Um, but the little bit of nylon goes a long way to keep me from having to darn a sock, a week after I started using it. So that was the hardest part. Most sock yarns that I was finding here in the USA were fingering weight, which is perfectly fine if that's what you want to do, but that's not what I wanted to do. So, and the other part of these is these are a mass market brand.
Hmm.
So whereas I love hand-dyed yarns, don't get me wrong. They're gorgeous, they're beautiful, but they're also usually upwards of $30 a skein. Which, I can only buy so many of them. And with being a mass market product, I'm able to price these at $8.99 for the 100 grams. This one is the DK weight. The color is called Lollipop. Um, and this one is the Aran weight. It's called Forest Berry. And they also have 20 solid colors, which is the main range. And
Mhm.
I do carry their fingering weight yarn as well. So it's a 75-25% blend of superwash wool and polyamide so that you can, if you want to, throw it in the wash. I wouldn't recommend the dryer, but
Right.
it will make it through a wash. And it will stand up to my child going wee down the hallway because his socks are sliding.
We always have to be prepared for the we, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's the only time he'll wear the socks is he wants to slide down the hallway, and otherwise he does not want to wear socks at all. So he's always excited if I make him a pair, but that is the only use that they get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I started with. I've added several different things over the last year to the selection, and I'm looking to do a bunch more uh, expansion as I keep going on it.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I can't off the top of my head think of a DK weight or Aran weight yarn that is reinforced with nylon the way that here in the US that there's an abundance of that in the fingering weight yarns.
Yeah, and there are plenty of DK and Aran weight yarns that are 100% wool. Um,
Yeah.
and there's some great options there. It's just that the tiny little sliver of the market where I found it lacking, and I figured, if I can't find it, then nobody else can find it, and there must be other people who are looking for it. So
Yeah.
here
And
I
that is
am.
a great thing to build something around, solving a problem that you're having, because if
Hmm.
it, like you said, then you can't be the only one.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that so much. And so you have some things on your website as I was poking around that I found really interesting. Um, I found that you had a Finnish to English, a blog post that gives the knitting terms. Do you also speak Finnish?
Yes, I am fluent. Like I said, I was 13 when I moved here. So I am fluent. My whole family moved, so I'm a first generation immigrant. Um, and I had to learn English as a second language. And I've learned all the knitting stuff because I got interested in knitting. And since I can speak both languages, I have the ability to um, pull patterns from either. And of course, as anyone who's ever tried it knows, Google does not like knitting terms very well. Well, it just doesn't understand. Um, and Finnish in general, Finnish is one of those really, really weird one-off languages that doesn't really match with anything else. Like, you've got the Germanic languages and you've got the Romance languages, and they all have similarities, but Finland is kind of like off to the side. Um, so Google will not be able to translate a lot of things accurately, and it's especially those knitting specific terms where that problem is. I mean, Google can tell you if it says count to five. Okay, count to five, fine. But if it says something like create a slip slip knit decrease, Google may not know what the difference is. And then Google doesn't, when I'm going the other direction, Google doesn't know if a calf is the back of your leg or a baby cow because it doesn't have the context.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I pulled a bunch of I'm trying to work on adding to it as I find other stuff, but the purpose is that if you have a pattern that is in Finnish, and you want to use it and you can only get so far with Google, then this will help with the other bits. Numbers are always numbers. So if you can look at my glossary and find out what the term for casting on is, and then you find the number that you need, then you'll be able to do the pattern just fine. A lot of Finland does a Finnish designers do a lot of color work, strand color work. So
Mhm.
then a lot of the pattern is in a chart, which doesn't need translating anyway.
Right. And reading color work charts is not as I found not as complicated as say like trying to read a lace or cable or brioche chart because you're just following how many squares in this color, how many squares in that color.
Hmm.
So it doesn't
Exactly.
require as advanced chart reading types of skills, which is excellent.
Absolutely. And that's
And you,
actually one of the tools that I have. I don't know if you saw these, the static clean notes.
I did
Um,
see them. Tell me about
yeah, so I don't know where I put my own personal stack, so I don't have a
an
demo
evidence.
piece, but basically they're static clean notes. These are big enough to cover an entire page on a book.
Yeah.
Of course, I blurred
Okay.
my background so it doesn't focus
And
very well. Um, but because they're static electricity instead of glue, you don't get a sticky residue left on it. The entire piece of paper is staticky, so the entire piece of paper sticks to your sheet, to your page. And I use those to just slide up along the chart to keep track of what line I'm on. And it makes reading charts even that much easier.
I love that. I've used something called highlighter tape or even
Mhm.
just a regular standard post-it note. But I tend to use that on one of those plastic sheet protectors thing to protect the pattern and to keep the ink
Yep,
from rubbing off and all of that. So this solves that problem because
exactly.
the thing that I've run into when you put the pattern in the sheet protector and you have the highlighter tape on it and it's maybe, under covering what you worked before, if the now it's highlighting the wrong row.
Exactly.
If it moves in the sheet protector, you have to tap it down to make sure that 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 you're looking
It's in the right
highlighting.
place.
Yeah. So with these, you can just put them directly on like the printed paper.
Yeah, yeah, it just clings with static cling, and it's strong enough that it's not going to fall off. Like I can turn the page upside down and it won't fall off, but it's simple enough that I can just almost just nudge it with my fingers with enough pressure to slide it up to the next page or the next line.
That's so convenient. I love that.
It is. And that's the joke I make about the stuff in my store is everything in my store is my favorite because I only carry the stuff that I really love and enjoy using myself. So my goal is to try and find things that will make um, the knitting hobby easier for the crafter and give them solve the problems so that it becomes more enjoyable. And that's one of those things that solves a problem and makes the knitting process easier.
I love that. I also, you seemed very excited as you about a shipment you got of, was it the Cordsmith tools?
Oh yes, my
If
lovely
my
picture.
connection breaking up.
I'd grabbed them all and as um uh they're wrapped with bubble wrap around the hooks, they look like a bouquet. So I took a picture of them. Yeah, the Cordsmith is a tool that was created by Autumn Eden Goodman, who runs the Size Inclusive Collective. She highlights size inclusive patterns from
Mhm.
designers, and the Cordsmith makes making I cord super easy. And she just introduced the mini, which makes a smaller, um, it's meant for lace to fingering or sport weight yarn, and it makes a smaller I-cord. And you can use it just to make I-cord, but you can also use it on an applied I-cord bind off where your I-cord bind off is integrated into your bind off. Um, if you're doing an I-cord like along the side where you're doing a couple of stitches and then knitting across, this isn't, any helpful for that. But for the I-cord bind off or just to make I-cord itself, it's super duper easy.
That's great. So when you have this shawl that you've knit, say from the top down, and you have 3, 4, 5, 600 stitches, depending on how big you got. um, so then you can just use this tool and you don't have to manually, I mean, you're still manually doing it, but it's not that same painstaking process.
Right. You're creating three stitches at once instead of doing one stitch at a time. Um, let me see if I can get this actually started here and I'll show you how quick it really is. I mean, obviously you can go online and especially on Autumn's website, if you type in Cordsmith into a web search, you'll find her website and she has all these instructions and links to everything. Um, I just, it, it's always the beginning is always the fiddliest.
Mm-hmm. Always.
I should have probably started this before we got on so that I'd have it ready to go. But hindsight 2020.
Of course. Always, right?
But all it starts with just a slip knot that you put the on the three hook on the outside hook and on the two outside hooks, and then you leave the middle of it undone for the first one. And then all you have to do is, nope, that's the tail. We'll run out of yarn if we do that. is take the yarn that you're working with. Gravity is fighting me right now.
It's hard to do anything in the air
Yeah. And then
and
wrap it
backwards.
like this way. And then all you do is you pull them off like so. And then you keep going same way. The first few stitches are always the fiddliest. And that's probably with almost anything that you do is the first few stitches are the fiddliest. After that, all you do is you just flip the yarn and pull on it and you're making I-cord.
You don't have to wrap it around all three hooks. You just wrap it over the three.
Right. So let's see how well this will work. So there are these are latch hooks, kind of like you would have on a knitting machine. So it's
Uh-huh.
got this little latch on here. And they when they're open, the yarn that you've already worked is here behind the latches. And
Okay.
then when you wrap the yarn right in the front and you pull, it closes up the latches and the stitches go over and the yarn that you loop stays inside the latches to create the new stitches.
Wow. What I'm totally impressed.
It's really, really awesome. The ones that I have in my shop are my exclusive design. They have my little yarn logo on them. And the zoom is not doing justice to this color. It's a gorgeous teal, shimmery, shiny kind of color. And it's just, I love it. And she recently introduced the I-cord Mini, which makes a smaller, skinnier I-cord from this one. She has Autumn has tested the regular one up to a bulky yarn, and she has also seen folks on the internet use it with a chunky yarn like Mecca, and it works just fine. And then this one is down to a lace weight yarn, helps you do a really tiny skinny. I've seen people make shoelaces using the mini, and as you can see color from the color, this is the same yarn that I made I cord on both of the different uh Portsmouths. The bigger one is a little bit stretchier because it's a little bit looser because of the hooks being a little bit wider, but you can definitely see the size difference in there. She's also been asked about a 4-stitch and a 5-stitch cord smith, and she is working to see if she can design it. But one of Autumn's goals is to make this as accessible as possible. And if you add more hooks, the handle has to get bigger. And the idea is that she wants the handle to be small enough that even kids can use it, which they can. I have a reel on my Instagram of my 13-year-old making himself a worm. Using the Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's
He got
exactly
really
what
into it.
yeah, that's what my almost 13-year-olds would use it for. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Making
when I was making these, I made a bunch of samples um, so that I could put some pictures up on the difference of it. And he was just so excited. Oh, Mom, you made some more worms for me. Can I attach them to my existing worm? As soon as I'm done with them, honey, yes, yes, you can.
have they picked up knitting, your children?
My older one does do crochet when the inspiration strikes, but he has not like gotten to it in a sense that he can't put it down. So
Mhm.
he'll get a hyper focus for a little while and work on stuff, and then get bored with it and set it down, and then maybe come back to it in a couple of months. The younger one, he's a soccer and mountain bikes and outdoors kind of kid. So
And
I've
worms.
shown them how. I've shown them how, but he didn't have the patience for the fiddliness of it.
Yeah, I had one of my twins is more artistically inclined. And so he had asked, this was like deep down, like when everything was locked down and we had no place to go and nowhere to be and nothing to do. So he wanted to knit a blanket for his bear. He was like 8, I think, at the time. So um we made a square, and then he said he was done. One square. Um, but yeah, it's always so interesting to see, what things they pick up from us and they don't. I have a 6-year-old niece who's very artistic, and so she's already knit a scarf for her Care Bear, and
Mhm.
then we knit a pillow for her Squishmallow, and now she's ready to make a hat. She said, I said we could
Awesome.
make another scarf or a pillow for one of your others. She said, I did that already. What's next? What can we
That's
do that's new?
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. How old were you when you learned to knit?
Well, so I got plenty of funny stories. In Finland, uh, um, it's actually part of a school curriculum, and it still even is to this day. And when I was in elementary school, we had the opportunity. In third grade, we would do um, a one semester of woodworking and then one semester of textiles. And in the textiles, when I tried out my textiles, one of the things that we tried to do, or we were supposed to do, is knit mittens.
Mm.
Um, and I found the process so frustrating because it was so fiddly, and I couldn't get it to work right. That I never got past the ribbing on the first mitten. Um, there were quite a few nights at home crying about it, and my mom trying to help me. And finally, the teacher's like, you need to give up on this project and move on to the next one because you're going to fall so far behind all your peers.
Hmm.
So that was a little traumatizing for me, and I did not touch knitting needles for about 25 years after that. And then at the end of 2019, um, I picked up some needles again just because, I might as well try this again. And this time it was surprisingly a lot easier. Um, Not surprisingly, well, surprisingly, depends on who you ask.
Surprised, but
um,
since you had trouble with it, as a child, that's wonderful
yeah.
that you were willing to
Yeah, but
try
I
it
think
again.
my patience has also grown in those last 25 years. And then I think I also have learned that I'm not going to be an expert at anything as soon as I pick it up, um, which I really thought I should be when I was younger. Um, so uh, at that point, I really picked it up, and I've been on that road ever since. So yes, I learned when I was probably 9, but I haven't been actively knitting since until about 2019.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we all have to, as adults, accept and get used to, that concept of we're not going to be good at everything the first time that we pick it up. I think there's maturity, as you said, that comes, with that discovery. It's okay to be bad at it at first,
Yeah,
those first stitches, 99 something percent of knitters, are not perfect stitches. And it takes that, that time, that patience, that perseverance, that desire and that drive to want to pick up those needles again. And when it's something that you're forced to do with anything, you don't have that passion for it, or that
absolutely.
interest, if it's a school subject, like it was for you, it might not be where your mind is at, or where your heart is at. So
Yeah, and when
I love
someone
that.
puts a timeline on it of you have to get it done by this date and you have to be this quick, and I'm sorry, I have 20 other kids. I don't really have time to give you the hand holding that you need. Yeah, and but then you have to remember that everybody does start from the same place.
Mhm.
Nobody was born knowing how to knit, and every single person started out uh, learning the same knit stitches and same purl stitches, with the same amount of information, um, regardless of how old they were. So uh, just got to remember that you can't compare your page 1 to someone else's page 500.
Absolutely. And something I learned from one of my children's, I think it was his first grade teacher. a lot of people have this saying, practice makes perfect. That's not true. Practice makes progress. Every
Yes.
time, you pick it up, you move a little bit, you move that needle a little bit further. That needle.
Yes,
The goalpost, you get a little closer to it each time.
exactly.
And we all fell down a whole bunch when we, first started to learn to walk. We just don't remember.
Right. That's the thing. We don't remember that part.
Yeah.
Although it is easier today because our parents all have videos of, well, we as parents have videos of all of our kids doing it. So they'll get reminders.
Absolutely. And I was looking around in your shop and I also saw, I don't know if you have it with you, I can share it on the screen, but you have some really neat things I haven't seen before, like a craft cube and a needle organizer that looks like
Hmm.
it's there's needles.
I
But I
do actually have the craft cube. Again, like I said, everything in the shop is my favorite. So I was running around the house like, okay, how do I bring my entire shop over here to to the table? Because I can't decide what I want to show. But I do have the craft cube, which again, with the blurred background, it doesn't want to focus. It's out of the way. Maybe it'll focus a little better.
Yeah,
But it's made out of, you know what? I'm just gonna unblur, and you're just gonna have to look at my kids in the background.
that's okay.
It's made out of birch veneer, and all of the pieces slide onto here to put it together, which means it packs flat for shipping. It has this section here that stands out like so.
Mm,
Obviously, you can see better pictures on the website, but it has holes to put crochet hooks. This spot is for scissors. There's corresponding little holes here for your scissor tips. And
oh,
then this section is for sets of double pointed needles. It is a yarn bowl as well. So it has the swirl here for the yarn bowl, and it has needle size gauge. It has a knitting size gauge. It has hooks for hooks because you can't always put your hook through a hole like this. So you can put the hook on the top here. And then
oh,
the bottom is a blocking surface for small things like granny squares.
can't think of anything it's missing.
Yeah, it's really really awesome because does absolutely everything. Oh, and then here you'll see it has this little slit here along this side. You can stick your needles through this and set your project here so it holds your needles and keeps your project from unraveling as you're not actually knitting.
I love that. And I love it. I can't definitely tell size, but it looks like that window on that gauge is a nice full size window, not that little 2 inch on the metal. Is
Yeah,
that
it says 10 centimeters since it's made in Finland, but 10 centimeters is 4 inches,
4 inches?
almost to the dot. So that's why you'll also see a lot of times in patterns that are international, it'll say 10 centimeters slash 4 inches because it's essentially the same thing. And yes, I do have the needle organizer as well. I can't remember where I set mine down, but it's basically a U shape and it has needle size holes on both sides that you can then set your needles through. Um, uh, and they hold your needles. You can either set it down on a table or you can mount it on the wall. Chantel says you don't know how to put the craft cube together or the needle holders. The craft cube is the one that I have at least. The wrapper has instructions on it on how to put it together, but each of the pieces is numbered. So like that bottom says 1 on it, and this side right here says 2 on it, and you just slide them on in order of the numbers. So that's the other cool part of it that I really like about this one is that it's got those numbers on it, so you know that okay, number 1, that's my first piece, that's the base, and then number 2 and 3. Well, if I were to take this bottom off of here, it's got 2 slots on it. So 2 and 3 must go on the sides because there's nowhere else for them to go. And 4 goes on one side and 5 goes on the other side.
Oh, I can share. I found the picture on your site
Mhm.
for the needle organizer. So just people have a better idea of
Yes.
what a U-shaped what that means.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, that's actually my own picture. I put my own needles on there so that I could show that you can put circulars on there, you can put interchangeable tips on there, regular needles, and the ones that are kind of falling down, those are the Addy Flexi Flips. So any kind of needles you can put on there, and it has space for up to 174 needles in sizes 2 millimeters to 10 millimeters, which is US 0 to US 8, if I remember correctly.
I love this.
Yeah. I just picked those up. I had to make a quick trip to Finland mid-May, so I picked those up. And then a friend of mine posted yesterday they have a brand new version
Oh,
that is a round stand-up one. And I've already emailed him and I said, hey, I wish you'd had these 3 weeks ago, but
yeah.
I'll probably have to add those to my collection as well. And the knitting gauges, I picked these up as well. These are so fun.
Oh, those are so
Little
cute.
cassette tapes that have the needle gauges on them. Like I said, everything everything is my favorite. I only carry what I love, and I'm always so excited about anything in the shop because I just that's why I.
My yours doesn't have numbers. Yeah, I would maybe Chantel, I would maybe contact the place where you bought it from and see if maybe they have a video or pictures that might make it easier to figure it out.
Hmm.
Um,
I do
so
have of the one that I carry, this brand. I do have a reel on my Instagram where I did put one together. So it's a little whiles back, so you may have to scroll a little bit to find it, but I do have a video for it as well on my Instagram.
I just put the link in the chat.
Yep.
But I shared in the email that you guys got, I shared all of Nora's the website link and the Instagram link and all
Hmm.
that stuff too. How often do you get to go back to Finland?
Um, Not as often as we used to. Like pre-pandemic, it was almost every year. There were a couple of years where my parents moved back about 10 years ago. So in the last 10 years, there's been a couple of years where they've come out here instead. So then we haven't gone out there. Then we had the pandemic. And then after that, we've not had a chance to go as much. This summer, we're not going because my parents are celebrating a big anniversary. So we're all going to Hawaii instead.
I like that.
Yeah. So maybe next year. We've also talked a little bit about maybe going to Finland for Christmas this year. And I've also my latest crazy idea is to organize a knitting slash fiber slash yarn slash whatever kind of trip to Finland. The handicrafts uh, festival, the biggest one is in November.
Mhm.
So there is still technically time to plan it for this year. Um, I'm still a little iffy about whether I want to go to Finland in November. It's pretty gray. I definitely want to work on organizing something for 2026.
Mhm.
Um, my oldest has a big chorus school trip for the summer of 2025, so I probably won't be able to put something on the calendar for that summer. But 2026 should definitely give me plenty of time to plan and organize and figure out all the logistics and put something together.
Well, definitely keep us updated about that. I know we were just talking recently, there's a cruise on the West Coast that goes up to like Alaska that one of our members was going on that she was excited
Yep,
about.
that's cool. I want to go to Alaska too. So that's the thing is my dad had always wanted to go to Alaska. And several years ago, he and my brother did a whole Alaska trip where they went fishing and did all the things that they like to do. And then my mom was going to go to Hawaii, and then nobody traveled anywhere for a while. So now we're finally doing the Hawaii thing.
I love that. So tell me, is there anything else that you are super excited about? Anything coming up? Any big plans you have?
Um, I don't know if I
Yeah.
have any big plans. I know that when we first planned and picked the date, I mentioned the rainbow yarn that I was doing. It sold out, which
Oh,
is a good thing. Which is a good thing for the purpose, but a kind of a bummer that I don't have anymore. I have remnants of my own personal skein. Um, this is one of the most popular striped color yarns in Finland, and this is from the biggest yarn manufacturer in Finland. Um, so since I sold out in such a quick fashion, maybe I can now convince them to actually sell to me as a wholesaler,
mm,
and maybe I can make it a regular offering in my store. But what I had done with these, I just went to the grocery store in Finland while I was there, and I grabbed 20 skeins of this. And then when I got home, I decided that I was going to take the proceeds from selling this yarn, and I am donating. And I actually made the donation this morning. Yeah, this morning, to an organization called Brave Trails, which is an LGBTQIA youth leadership camp. They're doing 5 different sessions of camp this year. 4 of them in California, 1 of them in New York, upstate New York, and they provide a safe space for kids to come to summer camp who identify as queer. They
mhm.
do family camps for families, queer families and their children, or queer children and their families. So either goes. And they recently brought some of the programs here to the Atlanta area. So I'm very excited about helping them out and getting expanding that program. They did a family camp in April, and we're working on doing a full summer camp next year. So hopefully that will actually happen, and I'm excited about being involved in that.
I love that. That seems like a really great cause. And it's as small businesses, we try and give back and support and help where we can, but sometimes it's those small grassroots organizations
Hmm.
where where your donation really matters and where it's going directly to the cause and not lining pockets, donating to
Right,
these big, bloated organizations where most of the money goes to pay salaries of not even the people that, are on the
right.
ground
The
making a
people who
difference.
already have plenty of stock options and
Yeah, and all those things. So I love that you found a cause, a special cause, and that were able to make, every little bit makes a difference, I think.
like,
Well, it was so wonderful to have you. I'm gonna just see if anyone, because everyone's been muted. So does anyone have any questions that you would like to ask? Nor you welcome to unmute if you'd like.
well, I've been thrilled to have a chance to come chat with you. Um, I could talk for hours. There's so many cool things that I want to share and bring out to and make accessible to everybody. So um, if anybody found anything that they enjoyed out of it, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't have another question. It's Chantal. I don't have another question, but I want to thank you for coming, and I learned it's so interesting. I always had a and I don't know a romantic for me idea of Finland. So you
Mhm.
kind of put it in a different part, but anyways, I think Finland and Christmas would be amazing. I live in Canada, so
Mhm.
we know cold.
Yeah,
But thank you very much, and thank you. I'll go check your Instagram to find out, because the one I got I I didn't get it from a good place, I think. it's got no numbers like yours. It's got a
Mm,
lot of things. So no instructions, nothing, just like flat. Here it is. And so I've never used it. So I'd like to use
oh,
it now. Thank you very much.
yeah,
And thank
you're
you,
very welcome.
Jessica, for
Oh,
putting
you're
this
welcome,
together.
Chantel. It's
Yeah.
always
And for those of you who may not know, I mean, Santa Claus does live in Finland, so
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
all that all that North Pole stuff is a
Yeah.
big hoax. Even John Travolta knows that. If you guys remember to the movie Look Who's Talking,
Yeah.
he already in that movie he says Santa Claus lives in Finland, and he always
Yeah.
asks. And it is a great place to visit at Christmas time because
Yeah.
you get to see the
Yeah.
big guy.
Yeah.
I love that. Much better than going to see him at the mall.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Sylvia said in the comments, thank you for sharing. This was so nice. Yeah, so I'm gonna then say goodbye and let Nora get back to her busy day. And I will make sure I share her links so that you can find her again.
Hmm.
She has a little pattern on her website. I think it was under $2 for a little like a beginner scarf if you're looking for a small kind of scrappy project. So I'll share that with you all too. And if you have any questions or need anything, reach out to me anytime. Thank you all so much for joining us live. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me. Bye.
Thank you for being such a wonderful guest.
Bye, Nora. Bye, Jessica.
Bye.